Okay, so here we have the Lenovo Legion 5 Pro and the Asus Zephyrus G15. These are two of the most popular gaming laptops right now, and both are sporting an Nvidia RTX 3070 and an 8-core Ryzen processor. The Lenovo Legion 5 Pro has the Ryzen 5800H, while the G15 has the slightly better Ryzen 5900HS. However, the Legion 5 Pro is sporting a 140W RTX 3070, while the G15 is sporting a 100W RTX 3070. We're going to test how these two machines go head-to-head in 6 different games, as they're both amazing machines for getting great frame rates. Now there's a few things we need to touch on before I show you these benchmarks. First is Nvidia Optimus. If you're gaming strictly on your laptop screen, then the Legion 5 Pro has an advantage here because it has an internal mux switch to bypass Nvidia Optimus and send all power to the RTX 3070. You can still do this on the G15, but the only way to do so is to plug in an external monitor to one of the USB-C ports. Now, most, if not all, laptop reviewers only show the Legion 5 Pro with Optimus disabled, giving it higher frame rates, and they only show the G15 with Optimus enabled, giving you lower frame rates. This isn't exactly a fair comparison because you're not really comparing their GPU power here as much as you're just comparing a laptop with Optimus on versus one with Optimus off. So to give you an idea of what both of these GPUs are truly capable of, I've recorded data for every scenario. That means Optimus on and off for both laptops, so you can see what these GPUs and CPUs are actually doing here on both machines and what they're capable of without AMD Radeon graphics getting in the way. That's why I made this video in the first place, is because this data was almost impossible to find. Next thing we need to touch on before diving in is the native resolution of these machines. This is another area that many reviewers leave out of their comparisons, but it's not good to leave this information out because 1080p testing is not practical here, and that's not what these machines were designed for, or how most people will even be using them. Both of these panels are part of the QHD range. However, the Legion 5 Pro has a bit more height with that 16:10 aspect ratio screen, so there are some more pixels to push out there. But both of these laptops are designed to be played at their native resolutions. It is very tricky to get the Legion 5 Pro to play games at 1440p. Sometimes the game overrides your settings and forces you back to 1600p, sometimes it vertically stretches the game, or sometimes the game just crashes. So I've tested as much as I could in both 1440p and 1600p on the Legion 5 Pro and have found that the difference is negligible. Sometimes performance is even lost at 1440p compared to 1600p for some reason, but most of the time it's about the same or just a couple FPS better. So 1600p is the way to go on the Legion 5 Pro. Plus it looks better with that additional height, and you paid for a 1600p laptop, so why not? So with that being said, for all fairness, I'll be testing both of these laptops in their native resolution, as that is how mostly everyone will be playing them. But I will throw in a few 1440p comparisons that I was able to get just to show you what I mean. Also, I would advise against playing at 1080p on either of these machines. It will look noticeably blurrier than if you were to play at 1080p on a 1080p native laptop. If you just want super high frame rates and you don't care about resolution, then check out some native 1080p laptops like the HP Omen 15. Alright, almost there, I promise. The last thing to keep in mind here is that this is an out-of-the-box with all updated drivers comparison. This is spec-for-spec. My Legion 5 Pro does not have the slow RAM that is known to be put in a lot of these machines. Sure, it's still not the best RAM out there, but the timings are at least higher than the slow stock RAM that Lenovo has been known to put in these. For example, like what Jared's Tech had in his Legion 5 Pro. This is faster than the stock RAM that he had. So, both laptops here have the exact same RAM timings and densities. There is no difference there. Obviously, you can improve performance on both of these laptops by purchasing higher quality single rank or dual rank RAM. More so on the Legion 5 Pro, as both RAM sticks can be replaced. This helps out more in CPU bound scenarios and lower resolutions, such as playing CSGO at 1080p or something. Now, upgrading your RAM will not give nearly as much of an increase with GPU-bound games like Cyberpunk, especially if you're gaming at higher resolutions, such as the native resolutions on these laptops, and if you're cranking up the graphics settings. You'll mostly just see improvement in the 1% lows, and maybe some frame stability. Alright, so let's get into it. Gaming benchmarks, here we go. We're going to start off with Call of Duty Warzone here. Some things to keep in mind for reading these charts is we have hybrid mode, which is Optimus enabled, and dGPU mode, which is Optimus disabled. So if you only plan to play on your laptop screen and you don't use an external monitor, or you don't plan to buy an external monitor, then you're going to want to look at these two bars only. However, for comparing these GPUs spec for spec, we need to look at them right next to each other, especially if you have an external monitor. That way you can see the potential frames that you can get with your G15, which is this bar. So, Call of Duty Warzone, this is in the Battle Royale practice practice match area, and frame rates are known to be a little bit higher here. In dGPU mode on Warzone, we're getting 142 on the G15, an average of 140 FPS on the Legion 5 Pro. These are very close. I found in 1440p, this does not change anything for the Legion 5 Pro in this game. Still gets about the same FPS. In hybrid mode, the Legion 5 Pro pulls ahead a little bit at 125 FPS, while the G15 is at 120. Now, like I said, if you're gaming on the laptop screen itself, this game is one of the bigger differences, as you're getting 20 more FPS here on the Legion 5 Pro on the screen. However, on the external screen, the G15 pulls ahead a little bit. Now with DLSS off, we're getting about a 2 FPS increase on Legion 5 Pro here, and about the same in hybrid mode on both machines. Moving on to control, in native resolution, the G15 is ahead just by 3 FPS here in dGPU mode. In hybrid mode, we are looking about the same. You turn DLSS off, you are pretty much the same on both laptops, no matter if you're playing on the laptop screen or an external monitor. And I went ahead and threw the Legion 5 Pro in 1440p here just to see. It gains about 1 FPS and only in dGPU mode. However, this did stretch the image of the game vertically when trying. Alright, now Shadow of the Tomb Raider, you're looking about the same here, whether you're in dGPU or hybrid mode. 86 FPS on the Legion 5 Pro, 86 FPS on the G15. You're getting about a 1 FPS gain on hybrid mode. And if you're talking strictly screens, you're getting about a 7 FPS gain on the Legion 5 Pro. This is one where there was a tiny increase in FPS when I bumped it up to 1440p on the Legion 5 Pro. It gained about 4 FPS, only in dedicated GPU mode though, and then it lost 1 FPS in hybrid mode here. Now, Forza Horizon 4 was an interesting one. On dedicated GPU, you're getting pretty close to the same numbers, about 3 FPS ahead on the Legion 5 Pro, whereas in hybrid mode, the G15 is pulling a good bit ahead, about 12 FPS here. And this was one also where I dropped it down to 1440p, and the Legion 5 Pro actually lost some FPS when I dropped it down. It went from 132 FPS to 128. Another weird thing with Forza Horizon 4 was when I dropped it down to 1080p, the G15 actually pulls way ahead. I think it's because of the 5900 HS processor here. We're getting 8 FPS of an increase in dedicated GPU and 15 FPS more in hybrid mode here. And here we have Horizon Zero Dawn. This was on the ultimate preset with VSync off and dynamic off. So G15 dedicated GPU mode gets 77 FPS, while the Legion 5 Pro gets about 3 more FPS. At hybrid mode, they get the same, and at 1440p, you get 1 more FPS in dedicated GPU mode on the Legion 5 Pro. Now CSGO, I ran these at native resolution on the Uletical benchmark map. These are the default high settings. I know my FPS across the board here is lower than Jared's tech. I'm not sure what settings he was using for his graphics here, but I was at the highest default values for each of these, and I'll show that here. So the Zephyrus G15 does pull ahead a little bit here in dedicated GPU mode, probably because of that 5900 HS. Again, this is a very CPU bound game. So we're getting about 21 more FPS here, but these are both still super high frame rates. In hybrid mode, it's about 10 FPS ahead. I was also able to drop this one to 1440p only in dedicated GPU mode on the Legion 5 Pro. It just wouldn't work in hybrid mode. And I got a 6 FPS increase, putting it at 301. On the Legion 5 Pro. So this is one of those games where if you're strictly playing on the laptop screen here, you're actually going to be pretty far behind what you would get on an external monitor. This kind of highlights the importance of a mux switch on a laptop and why every gaming laptop should have one. So in the future, we should all push laptop manufacturers to please include a mux switch, because on the G15, you are getting a 122 FPS increase by hooking up to an external monitor. That is crazy. I dropped it down to 1080p and the G15 actually pulls way ahead here. Again, lower resolutions rely more on the CPU, so this is probably that 5900 HS again on the G15. Now we are 57 FPS ahead in dedicated GPU mode on the G15, but only 13 FPS ahead in hybrid mode. So there you have it. These are my benchmarks. I recorded these across dozens of hours of testing both laptops side by side, running each benchmark multiple times in every scenario, and recording averages. If for some reason you don't believe these numbers, I would definitely encourage you to test these out on your own machines if you have the G15 or Legion 5 Pro. Please, by all means, test them out in the same areas, dedicated GPU mode and hybrid mode, and just see what you get. You might get more or less depending on the RAM you have, and same with the G15 if you have the 3080 version or you've replaced your RAM. Feel free to see how how you compare here. But these numbers are accurate. I do have some footage of me capturing these numbers in my 45-minute breakdown of these machines, which you can check out here. So there you go. That's how these laptops perform in games. In conclusion, you can definitely get a huge boost on that G15 by hooking it up to an external monitor. I don't know why Asus didn't put a mux switch on this thing, but you can definitely see that it should have had one. Let's hope that in the future, maybe next year's laptops all have a mux switch or advanced Optimus. We should all definitely push laptop manufacturers to include these, as they're not brand new technology and they should be on every gaming laptop. And in my personal opinion, and take this with a grain of salt as it's my own assumption, but I do believe that there is diminishing returns on GPU wattage. This could be an Nvidia thing. The only way we would know is to have a lot more numbers in both of these settings on a lot of different Max-Q and Max-P laptops with the 3070 variant with identical RAM timings, which is hard to come by. So that's why it's so hard to diagnose and distinguish if there's an issue or anything here. But again, this is my own opinion. We all have our opinions on this. Please do not bash me or hate on me because of that. That's just what I think might be happening here. So there you have it. That concludes the benchmark gaming comparison for the G15 versus the Legion 5 Pro. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or anything, please leave a comment in the comment section and feel free to like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.